let's just talk about new standards of sovereignty. How do you explain that to the congressional caucus? I mean, how do we can't get standards for financial institutions? Is that realistic? Should we be striving for it? Is it happening? Maybe we're just not noticing it.
You want realism or you want justice?
I want.
You know, seriously, I mean, congressional districts, if we're talking about the United States political process, why is it so difficult to get change? Because most people are well-meaning. Most people inside the bureaucracy, most people inside Congress, but they're caught up in systems. Most people on Wall Street were not necessarily corrupt. They were following rules and culture and standard operating procedures before the financial crisis. Some were Bernie Madoff and were crooks. So both were operating. But, you know, how do we get change and justice? Justice is such an all-encompassing concept. Of course, justice is essential to our humanity. We're all bound eventually together by our own humanity. But injustice, though, can come about in so many different ways. So there is no way to eradicate injustice, but we can reduce the space for injustice. We can create checks and balances through political processes. We can build institutions globally in civil society that help check this. Let's take Iraq. Where is injustice not only today but tomorrow? Well, one of the big concerns is not just after American military troops leave, there are ethnic and sectarian differences. There are Kurdish, Arab, and Shia, Sunni, and it gets more complex than that. Basic differences, not to mention other countries in the neighborhood, who will create injustices, perpetuate injustices, encourage injustice. So who's going to go in and stop the injustice? It's not likely to be the United Nations, as we've seen it, because there has been no enforcement mechanism, which is why the United States, one of the good reasons why the United States has clung to so much power, is because it believes it has a moral imperative to help provide a global security. There are bad reasons too. Some of them go back, as Connie mentioned, to the military-industrial complex, something that Dwight D. Eisenhower, when he was president, worried about as he was leaving the White House, because here we had created an entire service of military around a technological military platform, the airplane. And he was worried about it self-perpetuating itself. And it did a pretty good job, actually, of perpetuating an Air Force. So that's a problem, too. It provided security, but it was it out of balance? So on the legislative side, you know, it's on development, John. I've talked to members of Congress, and they say, listen, Patrick, we can't legitimately go to our constituents who are now, last night I had dinner with John McCain, at a dinner for people on both sides of the aisle, 18% unemployment in his state of Arizona. Now how does he go, even as a senator, forget about the House of Representatives, we have more local constituents, and talk about increasing assistance before he takes care of the people in his own state? So what kind of assistance? He's going to be bargaining. So if you're willing to put that down on child survival, something that clearly will resonate with the community, he'll fund that. But he's not going to fund discretionary money to go out and try to provide electricity and infrastructure and other things that may be required to allow a state or a community to have sustainable development, even that digital divide. So it's a real challenge to come up with a holistic, well-funded, well-resourced. And again, we have to be strategic catalysts. We cannot afford to try to do it alone. And that's one of our problems, and it's true with our government all across the departments. We try to do it on our own and then add others as afterthoughts. It can't happen that way. Whatever we're doing, whether it's a humanitarian mission or post-conflict or conflict prevention diplomacy or just long-term development, we have to figure out ways to make our modest contribution at the end of the day have the biggest impact for promoting justice, but promoting human development and human security.